Good afternoon, everybody. This is the advertised time and place for the Thursday, April 16th, 2026 Planning Board meeting. Please join the board in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. No public hearings today, so we're going to get right into the discussion items. Pulaski Street Storage with Matt Charters.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just have the come on up to the table and just introduce yourself for the record. Just to introduce the application, this is discussion of a site plan and special permit application entitled Pulaski Street Storage, which proposes to construction an approximately 5.0 megawatt 20 megawatt hour Tier II battery energy storage system with related site improvements within a 1.03 acre vacant property located within the light industrial zoning use district, situate at 1281 Pulaski Street, Hamlet of Riverhead, more particularly identified as Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-121-1-10. If you guys want to just introduce yourself for the record quickly, and then I will.
Good evening, Chairman, members. Andrew Filippazzi of Harris Blumen Archer, attorney for the applicant. And with me today, I have Alex Riley of Nexamp, the applicant, and Paul Rogers from Energy Response Safety Group, our fire safety expert.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So if the board is or isn't aware, this is before the town board, also for special permit approval. It was discussed at a work session, I want to say about a month ago now, with what I will call the original configuration. So if everyone's aware, this is the corner of Pulaski Street and JT Boulevard. We have Trojanowski Park over here, Town Hall West to the northwest. There's a wetlands area in the back, residential parcel here, and then the opposite side of JT Boulevard is presently vacant. So in the initial configuration, this was the layout. They did require wetlands permits because they were in wetlands jurisdiction. The batteries themselves were not jurisdiction, but the roadway to access was within jurisdiction. So one of the asks in the initial version of the staff report was for a reconfiguration to get everything out of jurisdiction. So this is what it used to look like. And now that the plan you'll see before you looks like this. If Justin can see it. So the 150-foot wetland delineation buffer is here. So this dotted line, about where the clearing line is. Access road here, so access now will come off Pulaski Street, and then all the battery infrastructure is right about here. And then moving on, just so we can see how it's going to be screened. Landscaping plan, so there'll be screening on the northwest side, along Town Hall West, and then within the required yards, which is a requirement of the code. In terms of secret, this is an unlisted action. For a special permit, I would say the town board is probably the most appropriate board to take lead agency. We're just waiting on a little bit of additional information before we can make a secret determination, but that's been in process. As you can see, we have quite a bit of site plans in front of us and component plans that go along with this. In terms of the battery code, this does largely comply. There's a couple outstanding items, mostly in terms of setbacks, coverage, where it can be, avoidance areas. This is a compliant location because it is an industrial zone. Just thumbing through my staff report, I'll just go through some of the notable items. So on page 7, this is what I sort of discussed before. So initially, this still has the initial language where wetlands are an avoidance area. We asked for the revision, so now we're out of that wetlands area. We do need an updated equipment specification sheet, which I believe is pretty easy to get. These are sort of pro forma documents from Tesla. Now going to the bottom of page 8, fencing requirements. Initially, the fence around this property was shown as 10 feet. It's not compliant. Maximum height has to be 7, so that's been revised to 7 feet.
Yes, the plan has been revised to 7 feet, so that's compliant at this point.
Kind of thumbing through, most everything else has been met. We'll need more information concerning decommissioning. So the decommissioning fund, that's got to be for the lifetime of the project. So
Separate report.
decommissioning it's a separate report. So and that'll have an estimate of the full restoration of the property to its original condition, so recycling the batteries, removing them, and restoration, and that's got to be for the lifetime of the facility, so there's costs associated with that, so it's essentially a 30-year cost, most often, or however the lifetime.
Yes, we've submitted a preliminary decommissioning plan based on the staff report. There's some additional information and specification that's needed that will obviously be provided.
In terms of referral comments, those start on page 13. Engineering has done a look at this. They're asking just for a cross-section of the proposed access road. They'll see this revised plan as well. Suffolk County Planning Commission did approve this back in July of 2025. The review of this application has been going on for quite some time. They did have a number of comments. It's currently with the town's consulting engineer who reviews our decommissioning reports. The fire marshal, we did get updated comments on April 7th, mostly concerning hazmats, and there's a hazmat team that's being established within the town of Riverhead, and there's going to be a required hazardous material fee, which we've assessed it's going to be 1%, equal to 1% of the decommissioning costs, which is not an insubstantial amount of money, but it does contribute. It's going to go into a dedicated fund to fund training, equipment, and the like for the town.
And if I could just add while we're on that point, the first time we saw these comments were in the staff report, so we are reviewing them. Our intention is to meet with the fire marshal, the local fire department, to address any of their concerns, and if the board has any questions, Paul Rogers, our fire safety expert, will be happy to answer those.
Matt, are we any closer to establishing that hazmat team?
It's very close. So we have staff. Staff has been trained.
We're
getting
pushing this.
equipment.
Every time one of these comes, we
Yeah.
keep pushing this down
Understood,
the
but
road,
it's
It's gonna be, but we're
it's
all.
pretty much there.
Yeah, we're ready to roll it out very soon.
So,
Okay, I'm not gonna put like a definite time frame on it, but it would be before this is constructed.
DEC, they'll need either an NJ or a wetlands permit. This did go to CAC in its old iteration. Based on the new configuration, it probably wouldn't need a permit from the CAC. We did get comments from the Riverhead Water District. So if the board's aware, down Pulaski Street, there's 2 supply wells for the water district. So Frank is just asking for monitoring wells to be installed on the property, just in the case that there is an incident here, if there's heavy metals or the like that go into the ground, they'll be able to pick that up before they get to the water supply wells, which are down at the other end of Pulaski Street.
And just to further that, we're reviewing these comments. Initial review is that there shouldn't be anything that can't be complied with, but our intention is to reach out directly to the water district and satisfy their concerns.
Early days on this, like I said, it's with the town board for a special permit. We'll need to make a secret determination before that, before they have a hearing on the special permit, then they'd come back to this board for a hearing on the site plan.
I noticed that there's a comment in here from DEC regarding the bat.
Northern long-eared bats, so they'll be bound by the clearing window as well when they do need to clear this property. So it can only occur within that window.
Yeah, our engineer, Labella Engineering, has been in contact with the DEC, one with respect to getting the non-jurisdiction or jurisdictional waiver as required since we're close to the wetlands, and obviously is aware of the clearing restrictions and environmental concerns, and this will be all done in compliance of those laws.
Go ahead. Paul, is this you? You're
No, that wasn't for me.
I'm just a little concerned about the let it burn approach. There's no way to put it out, you just gotta let it burn out. What would you do in a case of high winds or?
Yeah, and generally, we like to say manage the incident. Let it burn could be part of that managing the incident, but you can put water on it if they needed to put water on it, the fire department can, and that will all come down with the training itself.
And how about, how often does thermal runaway happen? Where one goes to the next,
Yeah, so that is dependent. I can't give you an actual answer, but I can tell you that one of the things that the performance test that needs to be done, UL 1973, inside the module where there's a group of cells, they actually have to put one into thermal runaway and prove and show through a performance test that it will not propagate to adjoining cells in there. So a single cell failure is something that the code automatically bakes into the performance standards of UL 1973.
What is the life cycle of these Tesla battery packs?
They have a useful life of 25 years.
Was it?
25 years?
And how long have they been manufactured?
They've been manufactured now for...
Not 25 years, is it?
No, not 25 years, but lithium-ion batteries have been manufactured for well over 25 years. Tesla, I think, has been making these for 10 plus years. We've had a battery in the field now for, I think, 5 or 6 years. It was an older generation of the Tesla unit, but same brand and make ultimately.
Failure rate, statistics on failure rates, and
at Nextstep, we've never had a failure occur, that's caused a fire within one of our battery sites. We have 35 operating battery facilities across the country. But from Tesla's perspective, I think there's only been very few, if any, fires as a result of this technology. The fire that comes to my mind was due to an error in construction and commissioning rather than necessarily like an operations error, where there was something that could have been prevented.
was that verified?
The one that's in my head was one from Victoria, Australia, and it was a commissioning error, which actually then changed the process ultimately for commissioning these projects, making sure that once they're delivered to site, that all the safety features are also installed when it's delivered, not just sitting there idle as you kind of finish the rest of the construction. So it changed ultimately. A bit of a gap in the installation process, and now we're seeing good process because of that.
Paul, if one was to ignite, how many hours or minutes or whatever does it take to burn out?
Yeah, Tesla has done large-scale fire testing on these things. Generally, they put in a range between 4 to 6 hours if they would completely consume itself. That's the range that they give. So
there's not unlimited cycle time, because each time you charge and each time you discharge, we'll say, that lifetime, I would think, that would have a great effect on the lifetime of the life cycle, I should say, of the battery, correct?
Yeah, so if you charge and discharge more often, they degrade quicker, and so ultimately we view the 25-year life cycle as the system degrading over those 25 years to a point where we can still operate the project. If you charge and discharge, multiple times in a day, which this project or these types of projects we don't intend to do, but the system would degrade faster and the life would become shorter. Ultimately, the life is based on cycles, not necessarily years.
Yeah, just so the board is aware and the public too, our code is largely based on fire safety and incident management. As you know, there were several incidents throughout New York State. Was there four fires that were sort of investigated in the state by the Fire Safety Working Group? So we got a more robust fire code as a result of that. Our code is built off of the NYSERDA model code with added conditions to it, so it's pretty robust and safety oriented. There's not many stones left
How many feet
unturned.
away is the closest residence?
Closest residence is to the west. I want to say it's about 400 feet.
Around
Yeah.
that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
Yes,
400 feet.
we're about 150, 200 feet to the property line of a residential property, and then there's a large wooded area between the property line and that residence.
So the wetlands and wooded area here, and then it's on the corner of JT Boulevard and industrial that goes around the back. But minimum separation for a property zoned or used for residential use is 25 feet for one of these units.
Is there a circumference of extreme danger if something's burning or, would that home fall into that category?
Yeah, I can tell you what the engineers in the city of New York look at. They usually do 100 foot, and it really is more just to see if there's any critical infrastructure in there, and that anyone that is putting something in that particular area, they want them to visit those people to make sure if it's a a factory or something, like, hey, if something's going on, wait for further directions from the fire department. So they make them go and visit the people to let them know what's going on and if there's an event to be guided by the fire department's direction.
Hey, Matt, there's, on page 16, it says that the fire marshal's report there, he asked for design a staging area for equipment with a weatherproof box to house emergency contacts. Where is that located?
So it's not shown on this plan because these are new comments that we just got, but it'll be a condition of approval should this get approved on a revision to put it where Andrew would like it to be.
So that'll be his decision then as to where that's going to be
A
located.
Knox box or something similar that has all the emergency contact information.
And we'll be reaching out to him to discuss these comments and address all these comments before, this is up for approval.
This is like
What
a
subject?
heavily wooded area too, so what is the distance trees and things like that have to be kept away? Is there a certain,
That's spoken to directly in the code, so it's on page 10.
about 10 feet or so?
Yeah, it's item J. Vegetation and tree cutting areas within 10 feet each side of the Tier 2 battery energy storage system shall be cleared of combustible vegetation and other combustible growth. Single specimens of trees, shrubbery, or cultivated ground cover such as green grass, ivy, succulents, and similar plants could be used as ground cover, but anything that could combust, obviously, you'd want to clear around, and I would assume the canopy in that 10-foot area as it goes up.
That's what I was getting at, the
Would make sense to prune the trees.
maintain that up to a certain, okay.
We're gonna schedule a public hearing anyway, right?
Not today, it's going to be
Or we will.
eventually, yes.
Matt, I read almost the entire thing, and it's very well done, and I understood most of it. Some of it was above my pay grade. But page 12, compliance with special permits is my biggest thing. And B, C, and D, the hazard or disadvantages to the neighborhood from the location of such use.
So that, go ahead.
I think only because you have the development in the back, to the north is town employees, across the street is Stotsky's Park. At any time, you can have a possible 200 children. And then you have the car dealership right across the street. C is the health, safety, welfare, and the comfort, convenience, and to the order of the town will not be adversely affected. And D, such use will be in harmony and promote the general purpose and intent of this. I don't mind the project, I don't mind the business, I just don't like this location. And I would ask all of you, if you lived in the community in the back, would you want this being put, 400 feet away? And be honest. Or if you worked, 25, 50 feet to the north, would you want this project to be put right there?
I certainly understand the question, the concern, and it's a newer technology, and you've certainly seen, and the state has, established the working force, task force to address a lot of these safety concerns. But this is, essentially an addition to the utility. There's an existing substation that I believe is less than a mile away that is, nearby residences. This is a supplement to the electric grid to help support it, and it's going to benefit, by reducing energy costs, reducing energy demand, by increasing the output for the community. So there is a benefit. It's, yes, worst case scenario.
And I understand that, but have you looked into or inquired any other parcels that might be much further away from any type of residential, Stotsky's Park, athletic fields? Have you
If I
looked
can add
into it?
some specificness about this location and why it's advantageous is PSEG have identified the feeder that we're connecting into as one of only a handful of feeders across the whole island, across all of Long Island, of needing locational relief because there is a peak demand issue. So this project is the location of this project is ultimately like a direct response of supporting PSEG and their network in this specific area, not just like generally across kind of the town of Riverhead, but actually where we're connecting into. And so, these projects are responding to what the utilities are seeking, which is this demand reduction and grid reliability.
But to that point, whatever you buy and then resell is not being used in that community.
Yeah, so that was one thing that we have a memo developed that we'll bring to the town board, and we'll make sure that everyone on this board also gets a copy of it. But as part of the project, we are required to sell 60% of our energy credits to residents in PSEG. So our intent with that is to do targeted outreach for the town of Riverhead community in the initial kind of as we can gather up residents, and also conduct a community meeting or opportunity to introduce the project, talk to people, and have people sign up before we look out to the rest of Long Island residents. In addition to the 60% of the offtake, there's another 40% of the offtake that we would need to sell to an investment grade commercial entity, which we've identified as potentially the town of Riverhead themselves, or the water district, or another local organisation that would benefit.
At a reduced rate or just normal rates?
So ultimately the credits work that it's a reduction on their electricity bill, a direct reduction on the electricity bill.
Like a solar credit?
It's like a solar credit, yeah, but it's a distributed energy credit.
I think to try to summarize is this site was identified as one that would be beneficial by PSEG due to the community that it will be servicing and the proximity to the existing substation, to make it as efficient as possible, and ultimately will impact and rather benefit the people in the closest proximity.
Is this company, do you guys own the property?
We do not own the property. We're long-term leasing the property. We have a 25-year lease.
Has PSCG ever leased land to these type of projects, like where it could be right next to the, it's right there where their
There are a few
power station is?
Yeah, there are a few examples of utilities, PSEG being one of them, leasing their land directly at their substation. That typically they don't do that. They look for developers to go and find land themselves, and they point them in the right direction in where they're looking for infrastructure to be deployed.
So are there any other parcels in Riverhead that are available besides this one?
I mean, this site itself, is currently a vacant industrial lot.
Well, it's been that way for 50 years.
Yeah, it's zoned appropriately for the use and conforms to the town code. I mean, I understand it's a specially permitted use, and the town board will need to go through that criteria when and if they grant a special permit, but it is permitted in the zone.
Gentlemen, please understand that what we're trying to do is cross the
Safety.
T's and dot the I's. It's new technology. We represent the people of this town, and, we need to be sure that all the neighbors and, there's so many variables here that, that's why we're, okay?
Make a comment, if you don't mind, in regards to your concern, and it's a good concern, in regards to the park. They're all equipped, right, by the updated state code, that they have to have a fire alarm. That is an audio and visual. They're very loud, if you ever heard those alarms go off. And usually, they will go off way before we see a fire on the exterior itself. It should give people enough time to take any type of shelter if they feel that the smoke is starting to come their way. But it is a loud, audible alarm, and again, we'll get the fire department there too. When these things do, if they were to fail and it were to be a catastrophic failure, they just don't go all up. It usually goes into a propagating mode where it'll go from one to the next to the next, and that's why it takes so long to actually to burn out from that 4 to 6 hours. If that would give you any type of relief that these people would be notified by the alarms itself.
Well, and if you could speak to a similar size application that's maybe more proximate to residents, like if they're in structures in other jurisdictions, or how close they can be to where people are living?
So, yeah, and I'll go back to New York City. We have them right adjacent to schools and one right across the street from a school. And again, the New York City Fire Department made them go in to speak to the school and said if there is an event that takes place, be directed by the incident commander at the time on what they want you to do. And it may be just staying in the school itself, but they felt comfortable that they could manage the incident in the event that something took place.
I'd like to just go back to the training aspect.
Yep.
Of when we get the board assembled.
Correct.
It's going to get the training. Is there any idea when this is going to happen?
So the training has to happen, if it was to be approved, it would be a condition of approval that happens prior to a CO or commissioning. So the local fire district, which would likely be open to all the fire districts in the area, by state code, they have to provide training to the local jurisdictions.
That's going to include, I guess, that someone from the fire marshal as well as the...
Anybody who would want to attend, I think, would be open, yeah.
But also thinking, because I was reading material on what happens if there is a catastrophe or is there some sort of a fire, and there's a whole chain of command that has to be followed, not including the town. I think somewhere or other, I think they get advised.
Yeah, so I think for something here, the incident command would probably be
What I think was getting at eventually, I think the town has SCADA. And if they could be hooked up to so that they get an alarm at the same time the manufacturer gets an alarm and they can start to mobilize.
So I think that you can do that through the central alarm station. They can make simultaneous notifications. They do that with us.
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah. I think that already
These
using.
things always happen on a Sunday at 2 o'clock in the morning, and nobody's awake, everybody's sleeping, blah 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 blah, blah, and that's when it happens.
Yeah.
And if we can be in touch with immediately with everybody else at the same time, I should say.
Yep.
Because that's supposedly there's a whole chain of command that have to be. Okay.
If you do that, I'll give you a word of caution, because we're dealing with it right now. Just ask for full alarms, no trouble signals. We get trouble signals all hours of the night. And all the trouble signal is a device may not have communicated properly to the fire alarm control panel. Someone needs to go out and look at it. You'll get a ton of them, and we're dealing with that now, so I'd only suggest that you get alarms, not trouble signals, if that makes sense.
Makes sense?
I'm just thinking if there's the direct communication can be through a SCADA system.
We're meeting with the fire department and fire marshal based on their comments in the next few weeks, so we'll make sure that we raise that with them and talk through with them.
And who is the leader of the training?
We'll be getting ESRG to help us with the training.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
I see on the print here, it looks like there's fencing going around the batteries themselves. Is there any kind of a barrier to stop people from coming in off the street and using that road to drive around the back?
Yeah, we discussed that internally. We've got this curb cut coming off Pulaski Street, so we don't have any curb cuts coming off JT Boulevard. But yeah, ultimately it's kind of gravel over there. So we're thinking maybe of placing some removable bollards at the end of this road here, so that then just to really reiterate that it's not an entry at all.
I think that's easy to do. We can work that out through the site plan. Either a fence or bollards that can be removed by the fire department to keep people off the property.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. Kids playing back there, skateboarding, doing whatever kids do. Okay.
Any other questions?
That's good.
Early days.
I just had one question for the board. It was raised in your staff report regarding the landscaping, that additional landscaping may be required as appropriate or necessary. So while we're here, obviously the plan is revised from what you had before, but any comments that or thoughts you may have with respect to that, so that we can one, meet that standard and satisfy this board with respect to landscaping, screening, so that anybody who's driving by really isn't going to know this thing is here.
Okay, I'd say your best bet is probably to deal with Heather on that. Sorry to give you more work, but she's our expert.
Very good.
So
I wanted to raise it while we were in front of you.
Indicated on the plan
Let's go
now.
to something else.
Go ahead, Joe.
Is there any lighting on the site?
I believe there's emergency lighting, SF?
Generally, there's no lighting.
There's no light like day to day. So as you know at night, if you were driving past, you wouldn't see anything, right? If there's crews out there doing work, there'll be lights if needed at night, and lights for emergencies.
So just back to landscaping, they do show a double row of green giant arborvitaes. That's on the Pulaski Street side and on the JT Boulevard side, as well as adjacent to the town parking lot. If everyone's familiar with a green giant, they are very dense and get very tall quickly, so the visual impacts will be minimized.
Okay, thank you very much. Good luck, and I guess we'll see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2, 2 Bluffs Minor Subdivision, Bluffs Drive Minor Subdivision with Heather.
Give me too much credit. I can recommend plans. So this is just sort of a brief update for the board for the minor subdivision of 2 Bluffs Drive. We had a public hearing on this application, I think back in August. The applicant did address a couple of comments the board had with regard to the tanks that were on site and that access easement they were proposing. In the interim, they did address a majority of our consulting engineer's original comments. One of the things I did do was refer this over to Drew Dillingham, the town engineer, because he is our stormwater management officer. And I gave you all a copy of Vinnie's most recent memo based upon the most updated plan. And again, he acknowledges that they went through and addressed a majority of the comments from his original memo. But for the purposes of this subdivision, so they submitted, it's a sketch plan of a minor subdivision. And in our minor subdivision code, we have 2 sort of paths for minor subdivisions. One is you submit a minor subdivision plan that complies with the list as recited in the code, or you submit a sketch plan. And at this point, the map, it conforms with zoning in terms of, it conforms with zoning in terms of area. They didn't need any ZBA relief for, the proposed building envelopes or anything. But this is not in an approvable form to bring to the county, nor is it in an approvable form for a final minor subdivision map. So Vinnie had recommended granting them sketch plan approval with a laundry list of conditions, things that need to be taken off the map because there's so much on it, things that should stay on. And one of the things that I discussed with Vinnie was the line of limit of disturbance. That's sort of around here. So this is their building envelope, and then they have these lines of limit of disturbance on each lot. And when you total the cumulative amount of limit of disturbance, they come back just shy of an acre, which means they won't need a SWIP. But that's just for the purposes of the subdivision. When the lots come in to be developed, you have your building area, so those are your setbacks for your structures, but then this is all entirely wooded. So Vinnie's argument was they either leave the limit of disturbance, on there, or take it off and make a note on the map saying that it would be covenanted, or in the alternative, provide sort of a buffer area. But at the same time, they'll still need an erosion and sediment control plan. So I think we did something similar for 105 Pier Avenue, that subdivision where they didn't get a full-on SWIP, but they did have to do that. I guess I'll call it a mini SWIP, where it's not as much review or information that Drew needs. So I did put that into the conditions of the resolution to approve the sketch, along with all the things that need to be taken off the map, things that need to be on the map. I forwarded it to the applicants, haven't received any sort of feedback on it, so I don't know if the board had any questions at this point, but that's where I'm coming from a planning point, and I agree with Vinnie.
Where did they go from sketch? How did they keep going after sketch?
So essentially they would, if you look at the conditions I have in the draft resolution, they would have to make a bunch of revisions to the subdivision map. remove a lot of that sort of unnecessary information, title it minor subdivision plan, and get it to a form where they could bring it to the county. So they would make all the revisions. I know they said they had reached out to engineering to sort of work on that sediment and erosion control plan. Drew had also asked for the paving and drainage details for the common driveway. That's something else that, I wanted to see happen before they get final approval.
The road, the cut is already there, right?
No, so this is a cul-de-sac, so it terminates here.
Yes, but there's an opening there.
Oh, okay.
There is one where the Belgian block actually goes into that property.
I'm just looking at my pictures from when this is a very long,
Right.
long-winded old application. So when I was there in 2023, I don't know if the block was there, because I did have a picture of the cul-de-sac. In any case, Mike from Highway doesn't have an objection to them making a curb cut there. He just asked that there only be one, because it's, silly to have multiple driveways accessing a cul-de-sac. So they would all share this access. It meets town law 280A in terms of access for each lot. Obviously, they would have to come up with a plan, where each person, what they would be responsible for in terms of maintenance, utility easement would have to be in there, and that language would come in the final approval, along with any other, covenant restriction language, like no further subdivision of any lot. So right now, the sketch plan approval is just to sort of get them to complete all of the necessary revisions, so it's in a form that you guys can approve as a minor subdivision map, and that can be filed with the county.
Okay, so what do you need us to do now?
Well, my question is, do you concur with Vinnie's comment that they should either have a non-disturbance buffer, or in the alternative, go for the full SWIP? I haven't heard back from the applicant. If there's a preference that the board would have, I can communicate that to them.
I would like to see the natural wooded trees remain that are there currently.
Okay.
I don't know how you guys feel.
That sounds good.
What's the percentage of the property that you want to remain at?
We don't really have anything like fast and loose in the code that gives us a definitive percentage. I could speak to Vinnie about that, because their limit of disturbance is this sort of area up here. I don't know if we would limit it to their building envelopes, and then they would buffer here. That's something I could certainly work out with Vinnie and the applicant. Maybe we can meet on it and then discuss prior to final approval. But I really this is to get them to do all the revisions they need to do, so that the map is a little less busy, and again, in an approvable form.
I have a question on the original report. There were tanks.
Yes. Yeah, and they said, I think during the public hearing, I'd probably have to go back through the minutes. To their knowledge, there was no oil or any sort of gases stored in them. They thought maybe wine at one point. I'm not sure if that was a joke or not. They'll be removed, obviously, but that's something that came up during the public hearing. So yes.
Well, if there's any type of tanks and it did have any petroleum product in it, you think it's worth it to just maybe remove it to a soil sample, just to make sure nothing's
We
contaminated?
had spoken about that, and they said there were no petroleum products stored in there to their knowledge. I could revisit that with them if you want.
I'm sure if they would have removed them.
They've been sitting there for a few decades, so they could have been like water storage tanks for the adjacent ag property, because it was all owned, I think, by the Van der Wetterings at one point. Yeah.
All right, good. That's good. Okay, thank you, Heather. Number 3, judicial levy. I hope I pronounced that properly. Residence Chapter 219 at 24 Beach Hill, with Heather again.
We have some representatives here.
I'm sure I didn't do your client any favors with that pronunciation, but,
That is sleepy, it's good.
okay.
It's good.
So if everybody wants to just take a seat at the table, announce your name for the record. All
How you
right.
doing, gentlemen? My name is Chris McAuliffe. I'm the contractor of record for New Image.
Charles Cuddy, attorney for the applicant. Doug Adams, engineer and surveyor for the applicant. Riverhead.
All right, so this is a Chapter 219 permit application for 24 Beach Hill Drive in Calverton, up in Woodcliff Park, the seasonal community, Suffolk County Tax Note Number 600-40.2-1-15. Just a general overview. I mean, the board already knows this is a very tight community in terms of where the buildings are. It's been in existence for a long time. The property itself, the house was constructed over a drainage pipe back in the 80s. And at some point, I'm assuming it was probably a CMU block foundation, as many of the cottages up there are. It got undermined, and due to heavy rains or just general degradation, the foundation was undermined. They had to start emergency work to raise the house and construct a new foundation. There is a provision in the 219 code that allows people to do emergency work. Emergency activities are typically exempt from permits as long as they notify the town. That didn't happen. A significant amount of work occurred on the property. A lot of fill got pushed over the bluff face. New York State DEC went out. Code enforcement was out. They're in justice court right now. So at this point, they settled with the New York State DEC. An order on consent was issued and signed. They have to do site restoration and remediation, including removing some of the fill and regrading here off of the bluff face, and also replanting. The erosion and sediment control plan that you have lists some plantings that need to be put in. I think they have bayberry and some beach grass, tells you the spacing of the plantings. They're also bringing in 23 cubic yards of clean fill to fill in that void on the western portion of the property. You can see from the picture in the staff report, it's a pretty significant drop between the top of the foundation and that side property line. And I think that picture is from when code enforcement was there, I think early 2025. They got a stop work order, so the property's just been sitting at this point, and any heavy rain event that we had caused some further erosion. So they need that fill to bring that back up and stabilize the area. So this board does have jurisdiction to grant the Chapter 219 permit. And the house itself, the foundation went in the same exact place as the previous foundation, so they are allowed to replace in kind. They even just set the old house back down on the foundation. I believe it's strapped and secured, because they didn't want to leave it up on the cribbing. So the New York State DEC does have a time clock on when they need to complete all of these site restoration measures. And in order to get their building permits to do that and also continue the work on the house, this board would have to give Chapter 219 approval. I know some of the board members had questions about the neighboring properties, the proximity to the construction going on. I did add some language into the resolution just to add additional protective measures, extra hay bales, silt fencing, if the building inspector determines that maybe like a temporary retaining wall might be necessary. That's not anything I would have a problem with, as long as it's below the maximum allowable height, again, just to protect the neighboring properties. If they get the work done quick enough, hopefully they stabilize the site before we get any additional heavy rain. So I don't know if the board had any questions.
It was Kenny or John mentioned that, they threw bricks and debris and stuff down the bluffs.
Yeah, and that's all gonna have to be removed as part of the order on consent.
There was stuff there already
Okay.
that was pre-existing. We actually planned to pull it out, sir. I don't mean to cut you off, miss. But once we had the stop work order,
Yeah, okay.
we stopped everything.
We don't care who put it there, but we do want it to come out.
We pulled out washing machines and other stuff. That's kind of the reason why that gap is there on the side of the house, because the dirt we used was the clean fill on property. So we never brought anything that wasn't naturally in the property already there. We removed items that didn't belong there, old washing machines and stuff of that nature, so.
Thank you.
I think that could probably also be covered under the the condition number 4 on the last page of the resolution, all construction and demolition debris shall be removed completely from the site. So we could just say debris in general, which they're already willing to do. And again, they need to do that in order to replant that area that the DEC wants them to replant.
Heather, like we discussed, I had a problem on both east and west side of the house for your neighbor's property. If there's going to be any type of heavy rain, a lot of that sand's going to come down. I see that you put hay bales on the east side, but just on that property. But if you can put more hay bales on both sides, 2 or 3 high, and I'm not asking for a bulkheading, in case of a heavy rain. You know, I'm an old farmer and I know what erosion, how it can happen, at least until you start to backfill. That was my biggest concern.
If you gave me a blessing today, this board was happy to grant us that, I'd have it done on Monday. I'm waiting to, get the green light and go with have it unearthed. The homeowner is willing. He was actually willing to revegetate prior to being told by DC he had to. He wants to save his property, he wants to save the house, and his family.
Neighbor's property. Doug, have you seen that?
Yeah, I think on the west side, right now, it's an exposed area for constructing the foundation, and nothing's been done in there.
Right.
So that needs to be once that's backfilled in, there won't be a slope there. So that's,
Until that time.
well, in that location, I wouldn't put any, because the first thing we need to do is fill it back in on the west side. And then we could put hay bales on top of that, because that's gonna generate
I
the
see
same.
what you're saying.
We'll make the condition on the west side after filling it the same as it is now on the east side, and they add the hay bales until they establish,
Even on the east side, maybe put some hay bales on the, to stop your neighbor's property. Because
Yeah, I think we hesitated to show any activity on the neighbor property, but with permission, we could run it right up to their, the extra 5 or 6 feet you're talking about.
I think the important part is that the site work's gonna happen first in order to sort of effectuate staging areas, so that they can finish the house itself. They have to rebuild the decks that were formerly there. I had spoken to Mr. Cuddy about the decks. They have the right to rebuild them, in kind and place. I was, wondering if they would be willing to eliminate the lower deck that was there, or at least reduce the size. That way you're retreating a little bit from, the top of the bluff. It's always good practice to do that, not required, but I don't know if the client was amenable to that.
I think he said he was. He would reduce the size of the deck.
Okay. So that's a plan revision. I'd want to see, the area of the previous decks and then the area of the decks to be reconstructed, I think would be good.
So Heather, if we approve the resolution, he's allowed to backfill to?
They can get their permits and then start all their work. I know that you've had the permit paperwork in for a while, and it was held up because of GEC and the need for Chapter 219 approval. So I don't know if you had any outstanding forms you needed to provide the building permit. If not, once the resolution gets signed, they can go ahead and get their building permit, yeah.
They might ask for updated insurance, which I have. I can provide at the end of today or tomorrow morning, first thing. That's not an issue. It just expires as you renew every year. Like your regular car insurance.
What's happening to that sauna?
So that's been there. It was actually, so where the sauna was in the concrete wall, there was a deck over that. It was, I don't know if it was attached to the house or if you had to walk out of the lower doors of the house and access it there. But I'm assuming it's either going to remain in place or go back up against the house and the deck will go over it. So it was existing, so I have no
It's only because it's in front of the hazard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an objection to them keeping it because it was there legally. They are allowed to, maintain things or replace in kind. As long as it meets all building code requirements, when the building inspector just looks at the plans, and there's no sort of separation distance needed to put the deck over it, I'm fine with it. I'd rather them just leave it where it is and not sort of exacerbate any further ground disturbance on the site.
Well, the residence is stable at this point, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Very much so.
All right, if you gentlemen want to take a seat, we're going to have a vote in a little while.
Yes, sir.
Do I need to, was my language in the resolution okay, Eric, in terms of the neighboring properties? I kept it pretty general, that way If the building inspector, says hay bales and silt fencing is fine, or if they want to do a retaining wall, that's fine. I tried to keep it general, that way it can be determined sort of on site what's needed.
I didn't see anything
Okay.
objectionable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good luck. Good job, Heather.
Yeah.
Okay, discussion item number 4, Elite Towers at Baiting Hollow with Greg.
Sure, absolutely.
My name is David Kenny. I'm an attorney with Snyder & Snyder. I'm here today to represent the applicants, Elite Towers.
What you got, Greg?
All right, so good afternoon, everybody. What we have is a site plan application submitted by Elite Towers seeking approval to construct a 140-foot tall monopole wireless communications tower with sectors for 7 wireless carriers, along with a related ground-mounted equipment facility within an approximately 1,600 square foot fenced area. The project site is the Beatty Hollow Club up on Sound Avenue. The property is located at 100 Club Drive. It's on the north side of Sound Avenue between Oakley Avenue and Warner Drive. The property is about 155 acres and it's located within the Residence A80 zoning use district. Obviously, Sound Avenue, this is a residential and rural scenic and historic corridor within the town of Riverhead. You've got numerous agricultural and residential operations in the surrounding vicinity. So the plans we've received the site plan, we've received a antenna site FCC RF compliance assessment report, an RF justification report. They did an analysis for the FAA regulations regarding tower height. They also provided a proposed view shed map prepared by Saratoga Associates, and we've received the full environmental assessment form. So in terms of SECRA, this is a type 1 action under Riverhead Town Code requiring mandatory coordinated review among involved agencies. The only agencies that I can identify as being involved right now are the Riverhead Zoning Board of Appeals and the Suffolk County Planning Commission. They'll get a referral pursuant to GML 239. Regarding the use itself, Town Code Section 301-274A states that no telecommunications tower or satellite earth station shall hereafter be used, erected, moved, reconstructed, changed, altered, or modified to serve as a telecommunications tower or satellite earth station without the issuance of a special use permit by the town board in conformity with the requirements of this article. And then Section 274B states that towers shall be permitted by special permit only in the following zoning use districts: the APZ, the PIP, the PRP, the RFC, DRC, SC, BC, CRC, CI, LI, RLC, and TRC zoning use districts. Based on the fact that the RA80 zoning use district is not listed among those, they're going to require a use variance. I will prepare a denial letter to provide to the applicant, and I will also begin the secret coordination among involved agencies. Regarding the visual assessment, so they did not provide the actual visual assessment yet. They provided a proposed view shed map. Justin, can we zoom out just a hair, please? Just a tad. Thank you. So this is the proposed 2-mile radius view shed map. The location of the tower is this yellow dot right here. The red dots scattered throughout the map are the suggested photo locations that they have identified as being potentially impacted by the view shed. So you've got one up by the condos up on the north end of the property, several locations along Sound Avenue, Warner Drive. You've got a location in some of the neighboring subdivisions also to the south. One of the questions I know the applicant had was, being before the board, do you recommend any additional photo assessment locations?
And we don't need an answer for that today. We have time, obviously, this is going to be an application that goes through several meetings, so we have time to add that. What the applicants did already was we took photos last month during the leaf off conditions, so we could at least document the worst case scenario. However, we hadn't met before the board, so we didn't have the opportunity to get your input or the zoning board's input on any additional photo locations. So while we already have some photos of leaf off conditions, we can still take additional photos from other areas. The leaves aren't 100% on the trees yet, so we can still have some more visibility than full summer conditions. So we just would like to, again, we don't have to have the answer today, but if you have any additional viewpoint locations you think should be included in our analysis, we'd absolutely want to get that information and document that.
So essentially, the communications will be inside the tower, so it could be used as a flagpole.
Exactly. So right now it's a nautical pole that we're going, because so with the difference between a flagpole or a flagless flagpole like the nautical pole is sometimes usually the ornamental ball on top. So right now we're not proposing an ornamental ball on top because we save that space for emergency communications devices. So if police, fire, or other public emergency communication services have a need in this area, we'll be able to support their equipment as well, and we put them at the very top of the tower so they have the best coverage.
There's a letter here to the ZBA. Has there been any action on that?
No, so I have not provided the ZBA denial. I didn't want them to make an application to the ZBA before we commence the secret coordination. That's been standard process for the board.
So they're just holding it.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, that was just really a letter to the ZBA that was just submitted with the application, but the actual application to the ZBA will be generated from the denial letter that I provide to the applicant.
Okay.
So in terms of the tower location, the tower is proposed to be approximately 140 feet off of Sound Avenue. I did note that the scale of the plans and the level of detail make it a little difficult to determine exactly where the tower is going to be. There is the parking lot for the Baiting Hollow Club. This area, again, without seeing, details on topography or existing vegetation, it sort of makes it a little difficult to ascertain if they need to do any clearing. There's sort of like a little dip here, a little hollow.
Ray, how close to the clubhouse? Is it away from the clubhouse, or?
I don't think the plans identify the separation to the clubhouse. I mean, it would be a minimum of 140 feet. The likelihood, though, is that there will be, the 140-foot radius, or the fall zone of the tower would likely overlap with some of the existing parking areas. So again, just that level of detail I would look for in a revised set that we could really consider the impacts of the application. Just show existing vegetation, some topography in the area, show the limits of the parking lot, so the board can really consider any potential safety hazards or anything of the like.
You're saying it would actually be closer to Sound Avenue than to the building?
More than likely, yes.
We'll have the updated plan show the location of the clubhouse so you can exactly see it.
Is a falling hazard the same with the road as it is the building?
So the separation or the setback for the tower right now pursuant to our code requires 100% of the distance to the property line. It does not make there's nothing in the code regarding separation from the tower and other structures.
The poles, at least in my experience, are not designed to fall over, but they will crumple upon themselves, so the whole thing doesn't go over. You can verify.
Exactly. So we have submitted with the application a structural letter from our engineer, and it's exactly that. They're designed with, it's not a weak point, but they over-engineer the rest of the tower so that one part of the tower is a little bit weaker, so that if the tower were to fall over, it would collapse in on itself, thus reducing the fall zone. We show on there the 140 because that's what was required by the code, but practically it would fall much closer in on itself. And we can have further reviews of that throughout the process.
So in this type of construction, there's no support wires needed, correct?
No, this is not a guide tower.
On page 4 of the staff report, I didn't go to every location on that proposed view shed map, but I did just take a couple of pictures along Sound Avenue to give you just a idea of what you're looking at. Figure 2 is taken from Sound Avenue looking towards the northwest. You can see the clubhouse off in the distance. And then figure 3 was taken just west of the Baiting Hollow Congregational Church. The tower would likely be somewhere in that, capture area.
And we'll have photo simulations of the tower with our next submission, so you can exactly see it. And we can discuss, this is already a stealth design where we're concealing the antennas within the pole, but there's other things we can do here. Maybe painting part of the tower sometimes to reduce the noticeability. Sometimes you can paint the top half of the tower sky blue, bottom half of the tower below a tree line, kind of more brown. There's things we can do to help with color that might limit the noticeability. You don't have structures hanging in the air, so sometimes it's usually just the pole itself you'll see. So if we can maybe color it more like the sky or something to make it less visible or less noticeable, we can absolutely do stuff like that.
In my opinion, if it's got an American flag hanging on it, that would work for me.
We can look into that. The difference with the flag would be the ornamental ball, because we want to reserve that space for public emergency communications equipment.
Is there any way starting a little bit lower with the tower and maybe eventually going higher instead of starting so high?
So we can review that. So our carrier right now is AT&T, that is part of, decided that they're going to be the first carrier on this. So we have to confirm with them. They're controlling kind of the need of the facility for as far as height, because it's a technical reason. But we can review that to them to see if there's any wiggle room. Generally, we propose this as a minimum height for that first carrier, but we also are cognizant of the fact that you don't want to have multiple towers in the area, so we want to build it for co-location. So we're building it right now for what AT&T's needs are, but we're also taking into account space for Verizon, space for T-Mobile, so that if this tower was constructed and approved, if T-Mobile had a need in the area or Verizon had a need in the area, they could be kind of pushed into our tower for co-location purposes rather than having multiple one-off towers in the same area. But this is something we can review, with our RF engineers to see if there's any wiggle room there.
And to your point, our code does encourage co-location, like Mr. Kenny said, rather than towers popping up all over the place. The purpose is to minimize the overall number of towers. Just regarding tower height, and this will need to come into play and be considered with the visual assessment, our town code, the wireless communications section, essentially allows an existing tower to be modified or rebuilt with no additional separation to a greater height over the tower's existing height in order to accommodate the co-location of a single additional antenna. It's a little wordy and a little verbose, but I've sort of interpreted that to mean they're allowed to essentially increase the height of the tower to allow for one additional carrier. So that would be done without special permit. That would be done without site plan. So when considering the visual assessment, coming in with a 140-foot tower right now, the visual assessments really should consider what is essentially a permitted build out if this tower is constructed of an additional 10 feet. Because that's something that would not come before any board. They could just pull a permit if they wanted to add another sector for another carrier. I don't know that there's 8 wireless carriers out there that would go on the tower, but that's something that needs to be considered.
We'll take that under advisement, but again, as I stated before, more likely what we're doing right now is reserving that top part for a whip antenna or for an emergency communication. So that might affect our ability just practically for extending the height of the tower if we're putting emergency communications up there. But we can take that under advisement and see if that's something we can do our visual analysis. The only thing is that we're building now, and we've kind of engineered it so that carriers can go below AT&T, so we're not anticipating or proposing to extend the tower. So right now, any kind of height, I understand it's a code requirement, but that's really just speculative right now. We're not proposing anything of that nature.
Is there a particular height where you require lighting on?
Yes, so that was the statement earlier, that we did an FAA analysis that confirmed that we don't need any light on the tower or any FAA markings. That's going to be at about, I think, almost 300 feet AMSL, and we're a little bit below 200 feet AMSL. So there's a large difference between. We're not going to, by the 10-foot increase, get a light on the tower from that.
To just go through, so again, I touched on just some of the additional details regarding the actual location of the facility in relation to the existing vegetation, some of the parking areas. The RF analysis that was submitted with the report demonstrated that the maximum permitted exposure level at ground level is 0.2738% of the FCC MPE limits, which is pretty much in line with every application we've reviewed. I don't think I've ever seen anything that gets above like 1 or 2%, so that's generally in line. And again, touched on the FAA regulations, that they don't need any sort of extended study or lighting pursuant to FAA regulations. So that's this application at a high-level overview. Again, I do have a resolution for the board to classify it as a type 1, commence a secret coordination, and I will also generate the ZBA denial letter to get to the applicant so that they can proceed with their ZBA application.
Very good. Okay. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay, thank you. Good luck. Thank you, Greg. Good job. At this time, we're going to open it up for public comments on any resolution. Seeing anybody?
Resolution 2026-019, minor subdivision, granting the sketch plan approval of the subdivision.
Second.
Moved in second. Mr. Zolnicki.
Yes.
Mr. Hogan.
Yes.
Mr. Nenaro. Mr. Bear.
Yes.
And I vote aye. The motion carries.
Move resolution 2026-020, chapter 219 coastal erosion permit for 26 Beach Hill Drive.
Second.
Really? You're not going to say that name?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. There you go. Did somebody second that?
I did.
Okay, moved in seconded. Mr. Zolnicki.
Yes.
Mr. Hogan.
Yes.
Mr. Nenaro. Mr. Bear.
Yes.
And I vote aye. The motion carries.
I'll move resolution number 2026-021, Elite Towers, Baiting Hollow. Resolution to classify the site plan application to construct a new 140-foot tall wireless communication tower. So moved.
Second.
Moved in seconded. Mr. Zolnicki.
Yes.
Mr. Hogan.
Yes.
Mr. Nenaro. Mr. Bear.
Yes.
And I vote aye. The motion carries. At this time, we'll take public comments on all matters. Okay, not seeing anybody. How about minutes, guys?
I'll move in minutes of, where is it?
March 19th.
March 19th.
March 19th, 2026.
Second.
Moved in second. Mr. Zolnicki.
Yes.
Mr. Hogan.
Yes.
Mr. Nenaro. Mr. Bear.
Yes.
And I vote aye. The motion carries. Greg, no seeker actions? Staff, other business? Wow, you guys are efficient. No correspondence. Our next meeting date is going to be Thursday, May 7th at 6 p.m. Have a great weekend, everybody. Motion to close?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much, everybody.